Hello, this is Amy O'Donnell, taping here at Bernina World of Sewing in Raleigh, North Carolina, and this is the June edition of our Quilt Along. This month we're going to be presenting two blocks. The first block we're going to talk about is called Ballet Dance, and the second block we're going to talk about is called Dominican Beauty. I hope all of you are well and that you've been getting lots of UFOs done, and it's a good time to catch up on your sewing, but it's also a good time to start getting out a little bit and trying some new ideas. So today we're going to first talk about the block Ballet Dance. So I'm going to take Dominican Beauty down for now. When I look at a new block, the first thing I like to do is kind of break it down into parts and pieces and look at it in that way. So the first thing that we need to do on this block is look at these corner sections, and we need to make 4 of these. So if you take your background 2-inch squares and your yellow square and you sew them together, and then you take your background 3.5-inch rectangle, oblong rectangle, and sew those together, and this is what makes up this corner block. Easy enough, and this is what it looks like when it's finished. When you put the block into your quilt, you're going to want to turn it depending on which corner you're using. So the seams won't all be the same on each block. You will turn it to make it fit into your block. And when you sew the background small squares together and the yellow square, press toward the yellow. Okay? That takes care of the corner block. And as I mentioned before, you need to press toward the yellow when you're making these corner blocks. Okay? So we've accomplished the corner block, so we need to make 4 of those, and that will take care of that part of the block. Next, we're going to talk about this checkerboard section here in the center, which is what a lot of people call a 9-patch. And these are really tiny squares. So you want to sew them together. Okay. So you assemble each row, as you see in the center of the block, of this little mini 9-patch. And it's important to press your seams opposite by row so that the seams will nest together and will make a flat block. So on the center row, I pressed my seams going outside, and on the top and bottom row, I pressed my seams to the inside. And that way, when you match the right sides together, it will give you a nice flat block. And you can see the seams are nested. And when I sewed my rows together, I chose to press my seams open just to make it even more flat. So that takes care of the center block. Okay, next we're going to do the V block. And anyone that remembers the presentation from February, this is the very same block that we made in February. And we're going to be using the V block trimmer ruler by Deb Tucker. And the ruler has a lot of different lines on it, as you can see. And so I have mine marked with a little bit of painter's tape. It always kind of helps so that I know I'm using the right lines. Now we're going to talk about using the V block ruler to cut the side triangles for your V blocks for the Ballet Dance block. So if you notice, there's a lot of lines on this ruler, and each line has a purpose. And so I know a lot of people, when they look at the ruler, they get all flustered and they're like, oh my gosh, I can never figure this out, but you really can. To cut your side triangles, the first thing you need to do is look for this more solid black line here that says cut line for side triangles. Can you see where this solid line right here, cut line for side triangles? Make sure the fabric is doubled over, wrong sides together, and make sure that the short edge is square. Next, take the ruler and search for this darker of the line that says cut line for side triangles. You want to line this up on your fabric like this, with this edge on top and this going across, and you want to cut with your rotary cutter at this angle. And here is your first set of matching side triangles. There's a right and a left triangle in that group of 2, and you don't want to separate them. Keep them together. So next we need to make your second cut. And you think, wow, this isn't going to work. Voila. Turn the ruler over and look for this diagonal line here. Line this up on your fabric. So you have this edge along the bottom and this angle going up the side on that line. Take your rotary cutter, and this is your second set of triangles. There's a right and a left triangle, and we need to keep them together. Let's make one more cut so that we know we have it down pat. We're going to rotate the ruler again. We're going to look for the solid line, lay the ruler on the fabric, and make the cut. So now we have 3 sets of right and left triangles. So that is the cutting of the side triangles. Okay, next we're going to use the Deb Tucker V-block ruler to cut the center triangles for our V-blocks for the ballet dance block. Okay. All right, so we're going to look for this line on the ruler that says fold line for center triangles. So that's the dotted line just a little bit outside of the dark line that we used previously. And then we're going to take our center triangle fabric and we're going to make a small fold in the fabric, and we're going to lay the ruler on the fabric. Now I didn't make my fold wide enough, so I'm going to fold it a little bit more until I get it just right. And we're going to put that dotted line right on that fold like so, and I'm going to make a cut. We are cutting our center triangles one at a time, and here, oops, didn't quite go all the way through. This is a scrap. Let's fold this again, make sure we do it right. This is live TV, people. This is how it goes. We're going to make this cut. Not good. It's hard to cut at an angle for the camera. This is our first center triangle. It's got a little blooper there on the edge, but it's good. Let's cut another one to show you how to do it again. So there's the first center triangle. So now you're thinking, gee, what are we going to do with this edge? And we can take our ruler. Let's see. No, we take our ruler. No, we turn the fabric actually this time. So we'll flip the fabric over, and we're going to line this line up with the edge of the triangle. And we're going to make another cut. Hopefully that one went through. I think I need a new blade, people. And there's our second center triangle. And let's rotate the fabric again. And this one, you can flip the fabric over to the wrong side and the right side because this triangle is the same shape regardless. So let's flip the fabric over. We're going to use this line again. And there's our third center triangle. You only use this dotted line in the fold on the fabric when you're cutting your first triangle. That's just to get you the first triangle and to get you the right angle to cut subsequent triangles. So that's how that works. Talk about the assembly of the V-block unit. So I've got my center triangle here that I just cut, and I've got my V-block side triangles that I just cut. And when you sew these together, you want to match up these points very precisely at the top, and you will sew your 1/4 inch seam, and then you will press it, and this is what it will look like. And then you attach your other side to the block and sew that and press it, and then this is what it's going to look like. Next step is to trim the V-block units to the proper size. V-block together, and remember what I said, you want to match these points at the top, and you will have a little bit of overhang at the bottom. The purpose of the Deb Tucker ruler is to prepare you to trim by having the blocks oversized. So the block is going to be slightly oversized. Now I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to show you how to trim the block to the proper size. Now we're going to trim the block to the proper size. I always like to take a little bit of painter's tape and mark on my triangle or my ruler where I'm going to be trimming at. It prevents me from making silly mistakes and having to redo my blocks. And it can happen to anyone. So you need to, if you do have that need, the painter's tape is very handy for marking the block. Here's our finished, semi-finished V block that has not been trimmed yet. One tip I might add in is that when you're making these triangles, you can see it's easy to get mixed up about what is the bottom of the triangle. Sometimes I take a water-soluble pen and I just put a little X at the bottom of the triangle to make sure that I put the sides on the proper side of the triangle. And that also will prevent you from having to get out your best friend, the seam ripper. So now we're going to go ahead and trim. When you're using any Deb Tucker ruler and you are trimming, you want to start out with the V at the bottom. You want to make that cut first with the V at the bottom. So if you look at the ruler, this is the size that we're going to be trimming to, and we're going to match this V. We're going to match this V to the V on our block. So we're going to slide the ruler down, and you can see everything is lined up, and we've got plenty of overhang. Down here it's more like crumbs, but it's good enough. And we're going to make the first cut across the top and down the side. Here's our first cut. Now we're going to rotate the block and we're going to line up our painter's tape marks on the cut edges, and you can see the V at the top lines up also. And we're going to make our second cut. And there is our finished V block, all ready to be put into the block. I've completed the blocks that we need to make the ballet dance. We've got the corner section, and we've got the V blocks, and we've got the center section. So hopefully this will help you make your blocks, and it'll be a good month to get your project finished.